The seeds of the Russia-Ukraine conflict were sown with the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The year was 1991, a time of change, a time of hope, but also a time of uncertainty. As the colossal Soviet Union crumbled, new independent states were born, Ukraine being one of them. Now, to fully understand the genesis of this conflict, we must delve deeper into the cultural and political fabric of these two nations. Russia and Ukraine, both born from the ashes of the same empire, yet markedly different in their aspirations and identities. Ukraine, eager to carve out its own path, started leaning towards the West, embracing democracy and setting its sights on joining the European Union and NATO. On the other hand, Russia, with its deep-seated nostalgia for Soviet-era power, saw Ukraine's Western tilt as a threat to its sphere of influence. These diverging paths sowed the seeds of discord, and as Ukraine leaned towards the West, tensions with its eastern neighbor, Russia, escalated, setting the stage for conflict. The conflict officially ignited in 2014, with Russia's annexation of Crimea. This strategic move, met with international outcry, marked a significant shift in the balance of power in Eastern Europe. Russia's audacious step was a calculated play, leveraging both historical ties and strategic interests in the region. In the early stages, Russia capitalized on the element of surprise and superior military strength, making significant territorial gains. The annexation of Crimea and the subsequent incursions into eastern Ukraine were largely unopposed on the ground, catching Ukraine and the world off guard. This phase of the conflict was characterized by Russia's seemingly unstoppable advance. Ukraine, still grappling with the rapid changes, was on the back foot, struggling to mount a significant resistance. The international community's response was one of condemnation, yet their actions were largely limited to diplomatic protests and economic sanctions. This lack of tangible military support for Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression further emboldened Russia's position. These early gains by Russia not only changed the geopolitical map, but also set a defiant tone for the conflict. The stage was set for a long and complex confrontation, the reverberations of which are still felt today. Despite the initial setbacks, Ukraine mounted a spirited counteroffensive. This display of resilience, fueled by national pride and a deep desire for sovereignty, turned the tide of the conflict. The Ukrainian forces, though outmatched in numbers, employed innovative tactics and sheer determination to push back against the Russian incursion. However, this came at a heavy cost. The loss of human life was significant, painting a grim picture of the real price of war. On the Russian side, the conflict wasn't without its losses either. Despite their superior military might, Russian forces faced stiff resistance, leading to a considerable loss of manpower. Furthermore, the economic toll of sustaining the conflict was immense, draining resources at an alarming rate. The cost of the conflict in terms of human life and resources has been staggering for both Russia and Ukraine. This brutal confrontation doesn't just highlight the geopolitical struggle between these two nations, but also the profound human tragedy that unfolds when diplomacy falters and conflict takes over. The international community responded to Russia's aggression with economic sanctions, a move aimed at curtailing Russia's military machine and pressuring it to rethink its actions. These sanctions targeted key sectors of the Russian economy, including finance, energy, and defense, causing a significant economic blow. However, the resilience of Putin's regime and his control over the media have shielded him to an extent from internal dissent. This economic warfare gave birth to the so-called Axis of Evil alliance, a term coined by the West to describe the political and economic alliance between Russia, North Korea, and Iran. These nations, all targets of Western sanctions, sought strength in unity, further escalating tensions on the global stage. However, the effectiveness of these sanctions and alliances has been a subject of debate. While they have certainly strained Russia's economy, they haven't managed to halt the conflict. Putin's control over the narrative within Russia has kept public opinion largely in his favor, making it difficult for international pressure to sway the course of the conflict. The sanctions and alliances have further complicated the situation, adding an economic dimension to the military conflict. As we move forward, it becomes increasingly clear that a solution to the Russia-Ukraine conflict will require not just military strategy, but also a nuanced understanding of global economics and geopolitics. In the face of a superior Russian military, Ukraine has turned to technology, specifically drones, to level the playing field. This strategic shift has dramatically changed the dynamics on the ground. The drone strategy, borrowed from successful implementations in other conflict zones, has allowed Ukraine to monitor and strike at Russian positions with relative safety and precision. On the other side of the conflict, Russia's military production capabilities have been a significant factor. As one of the world's top arms exporters, Russia possesses a robust military-industrial complex. However, the conflict has tested its resilience. The combination of economic sanctions and the relentless pressure of the conflict has strained Russia's military resources. The conflict has seen a mix of traditional military power and modern technology, altering the dynamics of warfare. As both countries adapt to this evolving battlefield, the balance of power continues to shift, demonstrating that in modern warfare, technological strategy can challenge raw military might. Despite the intense fighting and numerous strategic maneuvers, the conflict has largely reached a stalemate. As the dust of the initial onslaught settled, neither Russia nor Ukraine could claim a decisive victory. The war of attrition has seen both sides entrenched in their positions, unwilling and unable to give ground. The current situation on the ground is tense, with sporadic outbreaks of violence interrupting long periods of uneasy calm. The armies, locked in a perpetual chess match, continually seek to outmaneuver each other, but the deadlock persists. Beyond the battlefield, the impact on civilians has been devastating. Cities and towns across Ukraine bear the scars of war, their once bustling streets now eerily silent. The conflict has forcibly displaced countless people, tearing families apart and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The ongoing humanitarian crisis, marked by food shortages and a lack of basic amenities, adds a further layer of complexity to the situation. In the midst of this chaos, diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict continue. Negotiations, often mediated by international bodies, have yielded few tangible results so far. The geopolitical interests of various nations, coupled with the deep-seated animosity between Russia and Ukraine, have made a peaceful resolution a challenging prospect. The conflict, now at a standstill, continues to take a toll on the region, with no clear end in sight. As the world watches on, the hope for a peaceful resolution remains, albeit overshadowed by the grim reality of the present stalemate. As we look towards the future, several scenarios could unfold. If the tide of the U.S. election swings towards a second term for Trump, we could see a shift in the dynamics of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Trump's administration has shown a willingness to negotiate with strongmen, and that could open doors to a peace agreement. However, this peace could come with a price. Ukraine might have to grapple with significant territorial concessions to Russia, a move that might not sit well with many Ukrainians or their Western allies. A regime change in Ukraine could also be on the cards, potentially bringing in a leadership more amenable to Russian influence. This would certainly alter the balance of power in the region, but it could also stoke further tensions, both domestically and internationally. In any case, the conflict has exposed the fragility of post-Soviet state borders and the power of national identities. It's a reminder that the past is never really past, and its echoes can shape the future in unexpected ways. While the future remains uncertain, it is clear that the resolution of the Russia-Ukraine conflict will have far-reaching implications for the geopolitical landscape.